Up until I was 16, life was easily definable. Kevin was evil, and would bully me and make my life hell, and I would still be the smallest boy in the class that nobody respected. It was around this time that Kevin's niece came to live with him due to an illness in the family. Kevin had become a reluctant babysitter and was looking to dodge this duty when he spotted me after school one day. "Yo, Bobby, get over here." A lump formed in my throat and I knew I was probably going to be beaten, or at the very least threatened. I sheepishly went over to him knowing from experience that I couldn't outrun him. "I need you to come with me now." I need to get home," I said, trying to weasel out of spending more than just the beating time with the person I hated more than anybody in the world. "You're funny, dude." He twisted my arm behind my back until all resistance was gone and he handed me his books to carry. He lived about 5 blocks away and would push me once in a while just to make the point. I had no idea what he had in mind. When we got inside, he had me take his books to his room and meet him in the kitchen. He opened the fridge to retrieve a pitcher of orange juice and sat in on the counter next to me. The phone rang and he reached across, knocking the pitcher over and soaking me in orange juice. The phone turned out to be a telemarketer and he hung up. This had just gotten more complicated than Kevin had bargained for. He stood brooding for a minute or so, mumbling to himself, something his size, too scrawny for mine, Dad's, Mom would kill me, His eyes lit up as he looked me up and down carefully. Finally, "Clean this up," was all he said before stalking off. I did the best I could, but my clothes were all wet and sticky and hopeless. He appeared from the back with an armload of clothes and said, "Take those off and wash them." Now. I took off my clothes and put them into the washer. It was then that I noticed in detail the clothes he had brought with him. I stood before the washer naked. Even my underwear had been soaked with juice. He handed me a pair of white silky panties with tons of lace everywhere. "Put these on." He raised a fist and I did as he asked. A pair of white knee socks with pink lace trim, a petty slip and even a hair bow that I struggled with, and I am sure it looked pretty goofy. Finally, he held up a white party dress with pink ribbons and lots of lace trim everywhere. It was a little snug in the shoulders, but otherwise it fit perfectly. He tied the dress in back and buttoned it up. He straightened my hair bow and chuckled as he pulled me along to his niece's room. To my horror, I became instantly aroused in my silk panties and pretty dress and blushed deeply. Kevin grabbed my now shaking hand and pulled me into a little girl's room complete with a white lacy 4-poster canopy bed and thousands of stuffed animals and dolls. My stomach was in knots and I was very nearly crying when he had me sit on the bed and wait. "Take it easy, dude," he said. "It's only for a few hours. She's a good kid. If she finds out you're a dude, I'll kill you, got it?" I sat silently in shock and nodded. "Good, 'cause if my mom finds out, I'm in trouble, then you're dead." The daycare van arrived and Kevin went out to meet them. He had me wait in the bedroom and as inspiration handed me a teddy bear to hold as he left. I was on the edge of crying still when I heard them in the hallway. "I have somebody for you to meet, Cindy, she's going to take care of you for a while." "But, Uncle Kevin, you're supposed to stay home," Aunt Joyce said. "I know, sweetie, but I can't. I promise she's real nice and you'll have fun." The door swung open and I met my 8-year-old tormentor for the very first time. She was about 8 years old at the time and was rather large for her age. Kevin led her in by the wrist and sat her down across from me in the chair vacated by the teddy bear I held in my arms. "Cynthia, this is Cecilia. Call her Aunt Sissy for short." He was trying to keep a straight face and I must have been blushing deeply and was nearly ready to cry. "Aunt Sissy is here to help you. You can tell her to do things, but only things that good girls would do. She'll make you dinner, she'll clean your room, she'll get things for you, but she won't let you go outside until after I get home, and she won't let you watch television or any of the other things you aren't supposed to do. Aunt Sissy will play any game you want, but you have to ask her nice. She will always call you Miss Cynthia, and you will always call her Aunt Sissy. Hi Aunt Sissy, I'm Cynthia, but my friends call me Cindy. Say hello Aunt Sissy, he said threateningly. Hi Miss Cynthia, I said blushing. Kevin was beside himself, trying not to laugh out loud. Let's practice, Cindy. Do you want anything? I'm kinda thirsty, Uncle Kevin. Well, ask Aunt Sissy and she'll get you some juice. Go ahead, she likes to be told what to do. Get me some juice. No, Cindy, you have to ask her nice, Kevin said. Aunt Sissy, please get me some juice. Now, Aunt Sissy, what do you say? My hands were shaking with rage at my humiliation, but I managed to squeak out, "Yes, Miss Cynthia," before going to the refrigerator and retrieving a juice box. I handed her the juice box and Cindy made a face. I don't like mango. Please get me a raspberry, Aunt Sissy. I started to stomp out of the room in disgust, when Kevin grabbed me by the arm. Play nice, Aunt Sissy, little girls don't stomp, he said as he let go of his painful hold on my arm. I walked carefully to the refrigerator and switched the juice boxes. When I returned, I handed the raspberry one to Miss Cynthia. Thank you, Aunt Sissy, she said and went back to her drawing. Hey, Sissy. I need to talk with you out in the hallway, Kevin said. He grabbed me by the arm and let me out of Cindy's sight before having me stand still. I turned and saw several flashes of a camera go off. I instinctively tried to hide my face, but he slapped my hand down and I began to cry as he continued taking pictures. He had me pull my dress up to show my panties and slip. Of course he could then see just how aroused I was. Now, Aunt Sissy, I'll be back around 6 and I had better hear that you have been doing every little thing Miss Cynthia wants. Now go and play with your bossy little new friend. He left and was gone for several hours. Cindy became bolder and bolder with her newfound power over someone much older than she was. At one point she had an imaginary tea party for her dolls and she made me act like I was one of her dolls. We played with her doll house and put a puzzle together and I made her dinner. Kevin finally made it home by 7 and told me to get my regular clothes on and be back tomorrow 10 minutes after school or he would show my pretty pictures all over school. I was nervous all through school thinking that he might anyway. He was always cruel to me, so I assumed the worst. Nothing happened by the end of the day and I was thinking of escaping my humiliating circumstance when Kevin grabbed me by the arm and led me out of school to a local store where he used his babysitting money to get me a new dress. He took a cursory look around and grabbed one off of the rack that was one size larger than the one I wore the day before. Try it on, he said as he pushed me into the men's dressing room. The clerk was a red-headed lady perhaps in her 30s who just looked on in shock and didn't move a muscle. I took my shirt off and left my pants on and just pulled the dress over me and stepped out to show Kevin. That'll do, Sissy, not take it off and come with me. I was still struggling to get the dress off as he pulled me to the counter with my shirt in his other hand. We'll take it, he said matter-of-factly to the woman behind the counter. She rang it up without a word. I was blushing deep red by the time I got my shirt back on and my arousal was obvious. Oh, go pick out some panties too, Kevin said. I hesitated and he pushed me towards a bin of them for $2 each. Get 3, all pink, he said as he paid the silent clerk. He handed me my new clothes and dragged me back to his house again. Undress, Sissy, he said menacingly as he pushed me through the front door. He stood over me while I stripped and then put on my new panties with the same tights, shoes and slip I had worn yesterday. Over that I put on my new dress. It was a light fluffy peach linen Sunday dress with lots of bows and lace. My hands were shaking as I tried to button up the back. He got tired of my feeble attempts and got up and forcefully twirled me around and roughly buttoned the top 2 buttons and tied the bow in back at the waist. He instructed me to go to his mother's closet and retrieve the flats I had worn the day before. Kevin had me brush my hair out this time and put on some light pink lipstick. A pair of pink berets were added this time, and when he was done I looked in the mirror and for the first time realized that I really did look like a young girl. What shocked me though was just how exciting it was to feel pretty. I curtsied at the girl in the mirror and Kevin just shook his head. He took my clothes and put them in his gym bag. He pulled the camera out of his bag and snapped a couple more pictures before leading me back to Cynthia's room. She wasn't there yet, but he told me to wait until daycare dropped her off. I sat alone in Miss Cynthia's room and idly clutched her dolly, trying not to cry. I was a teenage boy in a dress who was the plaything of an 8-year-old girl. My hands shook at my shame. I was also incredibly aroused by my humiliation, and that only served to make it worse. I heard the car drive up and Miss Cynthia's voice as she greeted her Uncle Kevin. I put down the doll and stood up as I heard her tromping down the hall to meet me, obviously excited that her friend Aunt Sissy was here. Aunt Sissy! Yay, she said as she ran to hug me, almost knocking me over. Kevin followed and stood in the doorway. Listen, you 2 girls have fun. Cindy, here's my cell phone. You know how to auto-dial, right? Yes, Uncle Kevin, I just turn it on and push 1 and it will page you, Cindy said, all proud of herself. That's right, Cindy, so if Aunt Sissy acts up or doesn't do everything just so, you just push 1 and I'll come and give her the spanking of her life. I bit my lip and tried not to cry. Uncle Kevin? If I want Aunt Sissy to call me something else, is that okay? Anything for my little princess, he said as he brushed her hair from her eyes. I want her to call me Princess Cynthia from now on. Let's hear it, Aunt Sissy, he said, trying once again not to laugh out loud at me. May I help you, Princess Cynthia? I asked. Cindy giggled with glee. And can I call her Sissy, Queen of the Fairies? Can I, Uncle Kevin? Kevin started laughing out loud and I barely held back the tears when he said, Of course you can. I think that's, sweet. And can I make her curtsy when she answers me? Asked Miss Cynthia. Of course, sweetheart. Of course. Curtsy for the Princess Sissy. I curtsied for them and they clapped, and of course Kevin took another picture. I was blushing deeply when Cindy said, Sissy, Queen of the Fairies, get me some juice. Yes, Princess Cynthia, I said, wiping a tear from my eye as I left. Kevin stopped me on the way out of the room. You, forgot to curtsy, he said menacingly, so I did. I wasn't kidding about giving you the spanking of your life, Sissy. Do everything she wants or else. I nodded and took a little time to compose myself. Kevin yelled for me to get back in and do my job. I returned with the raspberry juice, but today she liked mango. Kevin left. We played dolls most of that day and a new game that she invented called Fairyland, where she would have me make up magical things that I waved my plastic wand at. The couch became a golden chariot, the living room became a magical palace, the kitchen became the royal kingdom, and the coffee table became a rainbow unicorn. The next day, I reported to Kevin's house and he gave me my freshly washed peach dress with big puffy sleeves to put on. He left us the same way. Princess Cynthia had the cell phone and I was in a pretty dress. It was now becoming routine and I kind of liked it. But there was still just a little bit of boy in me that didn't want to be called Sissy, Queen of the Fairies 50 times a day. She wanted to play Fairyland again and I tried to talk her out of it. Please, Princess Cynthia, I don't want to play Fairyland again. Please don't make me do that. Anything but that. No, Uncle Kevin said you would do what I want and I want to play fairyland. Now, Sissy Queen of the Fairies, I command you to make a fairy kingdom. God, Princess Cynthia, please, just this once, can't we do some? She had hit auto dial and Kevin had been paged before I could get to her. Princess Cynthia, please, let's play fairyland now. Right now, I'll play anything. Please, let's go. Uncle Kevin's going to spank you for being a bad sissy queen of the fairies, she said haughtily. I heard the front door open and slam as Kevin's heavy footsteps made their way up the hallway. He opened the door and looked around the room enraged. I was in the middle of a basketball game. What's going on here? I want answers now, sissy. I curtsied out of habit and tried to explain. I didn't refuse to do what she said, I just tried to talk her out of it. Cindy? What happened? I wanted to play fairyland and Sissy Queen of the Fairies refused to play with me, she whined. He stepped out of the room for a second and got a kitchen chair. He grabbed me by the arm and sat down. He pulled me over his knees so hard that I had to put my hands on the floor in front of me to keep from going over completely. He pulled up my skirts and pulled down my tights and panties to reveal my ass. He held me in place by grabbing the big bow that tied in back with one hand. He spanked me with his bare and so hard that I cried. I numbly realized that I had fallen to the floor. He pulled my panties up with such force that it gave me a wedgie and left my skirts up as I fell, leaving my panties exposed as I lay there crying. Sissy Queen of the Fairies, you will play whatever game Princess here wants, is that understood? I said, do you understand me, girlie? He raised his hand and I winced. Yes, Kevin, I do. Maybe that's the problem, you should be calling me sir from now on. Say it, Sissy Queen of the Fairies. Call me sir. Yes, sir, I said weakly. Good girl, now go get some juice. I understand little girls like you get cranky if they don't get their juice. I pulled myself up to my feet, but it took some time before I stopped crying. I was a little annoyed to find that the mango juice did make me feel better. Now show me this game that Sissy Queen of the Fairies wouldn't play with my favorite niece in the whole world, Kevin said. Princess Cynthia took me by the hand and had us skip to the living room. She sat on the couch and pointed at the couch. Sissy Queen of the Fairies, what is this? I waved the toy plastic wand and said, it is now your magic golden chariot. It gives you all of the most wonderful things in the world and comes with a full juice bar. Yay, and what are you, Sissy Queen of the Fairies? I blushed. This was why I didn't want to play. It was supposed to be a compliment, but it just felt like the ultimate humiliation. I am the most beautiful fairy in Princess Cynthia's kingdom. What are you? She asked again. I am the most beautiful fairy in all of the kingdoms. What are you? I am a beautiful fairy, I said, starting to cry in front of Kevin now. Kevin had picked up the camera and snapped several more pictures. Listen, you two, I'm going back to my ball game. Call me if you really need me. I don't have time for fairy games, Sissy Queen of the Fairies. Got it? Yes, sir, I said. I was now starting to hiccup from all of the crying. Kevin rolled his eyes and put his arm around me. I can't describe how wonderful that felt. He pulled me close and hugged me, and my sobbing and hiccuping subsided. I was so confused then. I was instantly aroused by having his arms around me, and I also felt vulnerable and scared all at the same time. I melted into his arms and put my head on his shoulder. I blushed when he let me go, and I didn't want him to go. As usual, Princess Cynthia was impatient with her Sissy Queen of the Fairies. What are you? Princess Cynthia asked. I am your wonderful fairy friend who loves you very much, I said as Kevin pushed me away and headed for the door. What are you? Princess Cynthia asked again. I am Sissy, Queen of the Fairies, and I have a tickle bug, I said as I tickled her and made her laugh. The next day Kevin wasn't anywhere to be found as I walked to his house and opened the closet door where my dress should have been. Today he chose to give me a short pleated tartan skirt and a white blouse with a Peter Pan collar with pink eyelets embroidered in flowers on the edges. Knee socks and the same Mary Janes and the same ultra femme panties. He also left a book about braiding hair and doing makeup. I blushed thinking about why Kevin might want me to be more attractive. I was trying to braid my hair into pigtails when the daycare worker brought Princess Cynthia home. Hi, I said, I'm Sissy. I'm the babysitter, I said as I dropped my braid and shook her hand. Sorry, I'm just making a mess of this, I said waving at my uneven braid. She was an older woman with a pleasant smile. Hi, I'm Maggie, I work at Little Darlin's daycare. Mind if I help? She said. Actually I'm trying to learn how. Goodness, a girl like you should know by now. She sat down next to me on the couch and Cynthia sat down next to me. This is Sissy, Queen of the Fairies, Cynthia said exuberantly. I blushed and Maggie smiled. You have a way with her. She usually is such a serious child. She showed me how to separate the braids evenly and then braid them. We did them several times before I got the hang of it. Thanks, Maggie, I said blushing. Just take care of what is it? Princess Cynthia? If you're interested in caring for children, give me a call, okay, sweetie? It would be a shame to waste the talent of Sissy, Queen of the Fairies. Bye, girls. Tell Kevin I said hi. Kevin came in at 7. We nervously said hi to each other as he told me to leave without making eye contact. I went to get my clothes and couldn't bear to get undressed without talking to Kevin first. So I went to the kitchen to find him. Kevin, I liked it when you held me yesterday. Oh, man, shut up about that, he said. I know you like me, Kevin, I said. I took a risk and touched his hand, which he pushed away, but not right away. You're a sissy. Now get out of here before Mom gets home. I left crying. I just got my clothes and walked out in my girl clothes. Fortunately, nobody was around and I came in the back door of my house and went straight to my room. I realized when I sat on my bed crying that I just didn't care anymore if people knew that I liked to wear girl clothes. I took off the skirt and blouse and hung them up neatly. The shoes I put in my closet with my other shoes. I washed the pantyhose, slip and panties. I dried them before Mom and Dad got home and put them in my closet too. I called Kevin from my room. Kevin, listen, I don't care if you show everybody all of those stupid fairy pictures. I'm going to take care of Princess Cynthia because she is a wonderful child and I adore being girls with her. We have such innocent fun together. If you love me, don't love me, kiss me, take me to the movies, feel me up, whatever, I will continue to be your niece's little friend. I think I may like boys, but you are only one boy and I will find others. I am your niece's devoted friend. If you do anything to change that, I will tell your mom and the principal of our school and even the police everything, and it is you who will be very sorry. No beatings you could ever give me are going to change my mind, I said as I hung up the phone. Kevin tried to call 5 times that night and I refused to talk to him. Instead, I folded up my girl clothes and put them in my backpack. I went to school the next day and Kevin made sure he avoided me all day. He was at the door when I arrived at his house with some flowers and a shy smile. I got dressed and did my braids and took my time doing them. I'm sorry, sissy, he said. It's Cecilia to you, Kevin, I said shyly. He put his arm around my waist and kissed me very badly. But it was sweet. He was awkward and fumbled the flowers to the floor, which he scrambled to pick up again. We kissed a few times, but he really did like girls. I was heartbroken when he eventually got a girlfriend about a month later. About a month after Kevin fell in love with that skanky girl Naomi, I was doing a French braid in Princess Cynthia's hair when I finally met Kevin's mom. I didn't hear the door open and was shocked to see an attractive tall brunette woman in her 30s standing in front of me in the kitchen. Cynthia yelled, "Aunt Joyce," and got up and hugged her. "Who's your little friend?" the lady asked. "How did you two cook dinner?" "I told you not to go near the hot stove." "Two little girls alone in the house? Where's Uncle Kevin?" "This is Aunt Sissy," yelled Cindy with glee. "She's actually Sissy, Queen of the Fairies, and she makes up fairyland with me every day. Uncle Kevin got her to stay with me." She turned to me with renewed interest. "Does your mommy know where you are? Surely you can't be old enough to babysit. You're just a girl." Aunt Sissy does everything I say and Uncle Kevin says she knows how to get things and make things, but she won't let me be a bad girl." "Cindy, go get cleaned up and then you can watch your show." Cindy ran over and gave me a big hug and then to her Aunt Joyce and gave her a big hug and ran out of the room. "How old are you, Aunt Sissy, is it?" "Short for Cecilia?" "I'm 15, I said. Cecilia is the name Kevin made up for me. Don't you dress a little young for your age?" "What's your real name?" "Robert," I said. She just stood there stunned. "You're a boy?" "Yes," I said. Kevin made me follow him home from school and then my clothes got ruined the first day, and then he made me put these clothes on and then he made me be Aunt Sissy to Miss Cynthia, and do everything she tells me or else he spanks me. I was out of breath and barely heard her laugh out loud, through my tears. She laughed and laughed as I stood there ashamed and wanting to go home. "Hi, Mom," I heard Kevin sheepishly say from behind me. She turned to him unable to bring any anger up and said, "Is it true that you made this boy wear your niece's clothes and be her slave?" Yes, Mom," Kevin said quietly. She said, "Go to your room," quietly and evenly with a hint of danger in her voice. She turned to me and asked if I had eaten and if my parents might be worried about me by now. I explained that I had been babysitting for the entire summer while Kevin played basketball. She drove me home and tried to pay me for my babysitting time, but before I got out of the car she took my hand and turned to look me in the eye. "I was there for quite a while before you saw me. I saw how much you enjoyed being a girl. You were so tender and kind with my daughter and even sang one of her little songs with her. You acted and walked around on air like a little princess. I couldn't think of another person in the world that I would want babysitting my niece. Please, I would like to hire you to take care of Miss Cynthia every day after school for the next 6 months. I would pay you and even buy some pretty clothes of your own. I can't afford all new, but I am great at finding things at thrift stores. Kevin is a lousy babysitter and I have to work until 6:30 every day. I am at my wit's end. She's such a sweet girl and she obviously loves you very much. Please say yes. Please be Aunt Sissy. For yourself, for Cindy, for me." I was again crying, only on one condition, I said as she wiped my face with a tissue. "Kevin doesn't bully me anymore. Deal. I'll see Aunt Sissy around 3 tomorrow then?" "Okay, I'll be there." "Good girl," she said as she kissed me on the forehead and started the car. Kevin never bothered me again. Miss Cynthia and I had a wonderful 6 months together playing dolls, having tea parties and playing fairyland. As promised, Aunt Joyce bought me lots of very pretty clothes, and even after Miss Cynthia went back to her home in Arizona, I continued to dress up and cook and clean and even play with dolls at Aunt Joyce's house. Aunt Joyce became Mistress Joyce on my 18th birthday, and I became Princess Cecilia, Joyce's lover, maid, little girl, and Kevin's subservient father. I found that I liked boys, but my heart was really in being a girl with other girls. Miss Cynthia is all grown up now and is a beautiful woman. She brings me little girl things whenever she comes over, and it is she who leads our game of fairyland. Kevin, as you might expect, married a bimbo the first time out and had a nasty divorce. His new wife took things well in hand, and he became baby Kevin most of the time. I babysit and change his diapers sometimes. Just last week she allowed him his very first words since their marriage a year ago. The first words that his mommy allowed him to say were "Thank you, Auntie Sissy." I was so happy I cried on the spot. His new mommy showed me how to milk him, and I did. I cried and cooed at the little guy the whole time. She thought it was a riot and gave me a lollipop and sent me home. As I skipped the block and a half to my house, I remembered that first day when by fate a pitcher of orange juice spilled on my awful boy clothes and started me on the greatest adventure of my life, being a slave named Aunt Sissy to a little girl and loving it.